The wet handprint on the inside of the cargo door wasn't mine. It was high up, like someone reached over my head from inside and leaned on the metal. I wiped it and it smeared on my palm. Clean water, no smell. The passenger belt pulled tight and clicked. The scanner chirped from the back when it was still in the cradle up front. I remember that part clearest. How it chirped and there was no one in the back to touch it. I'm writing this now before I forget the order. My hands keep jumping on the keys. I was doing nights to beat the heat and traffic. Tuesday. Or I guess it's Wednesday now. Whatever. End of month crunch. Too many stops. They told me a trainee would ride along. I was half awake and annoyed, so I joked about it to the gate guard. New guy, right? I'll scare him off in an hour. The guard said something I didn't hear because of a truck engine, and I smiled and waved him off. I had my second coffee sweating in the cup holder already. The lid left a wet ring on the console. I don't like having someone in the cab. It's small in there. I like my radio and my route and my bad jokes. I told dispatch I'd take the trainee if he didn't talk my ear off. She laughed and said, "Sure, big man." I pulled the van from the bay, did the dumb walk around, and I looked at the passenger door. The belt was hanging straight down. I hit the unlock to make sure. The dome light flicked once. It does that sometimes. Old van. At the store on the corner, I got 2 coffees out of habit. One black, one sweet. I set the sweet one on the passenger seat and watched water roll down the cup. The seatbelt buckled by itself. Just a little pull and a click. I laughed out loud. I said, "All right, safety first, my guy." I reached over and tugged the belt. It was tight around nothing. When I let go, it stayed locked. I called it a haunted van in my head and kept rolling. And first drop was boring. Gated neighborhood. Gate code worked. Dog barked. Lady took box without looking at me. The scanner worked normal. Chirp. Photo for proof. I held the phone up, and the reflection in the glass showed just me with my arm out. I remember thinking the trainee was standing behind me. When I looked at the photo, it was just my hand and the door. I thought he had ducked out of frame. I didn't think hard about it. Second drop, same. Third had a signature required. I said to the space next to me, "You want to take this? Learn the fancy ones?" No answer. I was still joking. I kept calling him new guy and kid because I forgot if they said a name. The radio broke to static right when I reached the address. It went from some ads to a long hiss. I smacked the knob and it came back. I said, "Don't be scared, it's just static." I kept doing bits by myself like an idiot. I started noticing the GPS. It gave me 2 bundles for the same street, and the app pinned them a block apart. I hit one, delivered, got back in, and the next one jumped back to that same house number. Not the same name, but the same number. I said, "They tried to scam 2 deliveries. Punks," and I laughed again. But the belt clicked, like the kind of small click when you settle in your seat. I looked over and saw the curve of the shoulder strap pulled out tight like a chest. I told myself the cup did that. I had a weird envelope in the next tote. No return. No logo. Brown paper wet at one corner. It left a damp patch on the floor mat when I set it down. I pressed the edge and water came out onto my fingers. Not a smell. Just tap water. The label said ATTN, Night Manager, and the street was one of those repeating ones, same numbers as one I'd just passed. I scanned it and the scanner chirped wrong. Not the little OK sound. It did a longer double note and then flashed sign. I hadn't seen that screen except on pickup. It said, driver sign to release. The name field was already filled with my name from the manifest. I said, "Sure, whatever," and scribbled. It chirped twice. The radio hissed again, and the dome light flicked and then stayed dim for a second when I closed the side door. I wiped my palm on my shorts. It felt cold where I touched that envelope. At the gas station, I stopped to use the bathroom. I brought the 2 cups in so they wouldn't spill in the heat. The clerk with the shaved head nodded at me. "Double fisting?" he said. I said, "One's for the rookie. He's too shy to come in." The guy looked over my shoulder. The door chime went finally. He said, "Who?" I laughed. "He's in the van." The clerk shook his head. "No, man. You walked in alone carrying 2. I watched you. You're tripping." I turned around, and the van was parked nose to the window. I could see the passenger seat. The belt was tight across the empty seat. The dome light popped on and off. I told the clerk it sticks. He shrugged and rang up a beef stick. He handed me my receipt and the pen. When I signed, he tapped the counter where I put the pen down. "You all right?" he said. "You look like you lost something." I said I was fine. Back in the van, I said, "They think I'm crazy. New guy. Don't make me look stupid." I meant it as a joke, but my voice came out thin. The scanner chirped from the cargo bay. It was in the cradle next to my leg. I picked it up. The screen was dark. I heard the chirp again from behind the bulkhead. Metal to plastic, the way it sounds when it sits on the shelf back there and gets touched. I slid open the bulkhead and peered through. The back was gray straps and bins, all tight. No one. I got back in and closed it, and the dome light flicked. The radio went to static again for a second, and then came back on a different station. I called dispatch. "Hey, is this some prank?" I said. "You put a mime back here. He's real quiet." She went silent. Then she said, "You don't have a trainee tonight." I told her, "They told me in the yard I did." She said, "No, we didn't have anybody clear for nights. It's just you." I looked over at the belt and the cup sweating, and I felt mad because I hate being the butt of a joke. I said, "Your system's wrong." She said, "Do you want me to call someone to ride?" I said no because, screw that. I hung up and regretted it right away. The scanner chirped again. It was a tiny sound and it made my hair stand up. The route tightened. The same house numbers. I know my city. I know the loops and the dead ends. I delivered to a brick duplex with a broken step, took the proof photo, got back in, and the app pushed me back 2 blocks to a house with the same numbers and the same porch light. I'm not making that up. I checked names. Different name. Same timer running, like the package had been waiting all night. I said to the empty seat, "Okay, you get this one." I reached over and pretended to hand the label to someone. The belt creaked and pulled 2 inches tighter. I felt the arm of the seat touch my elbow. I jerked away so fast I banged my funny bone. My eyes watered. I said, "Fuck," too loud. I knocked on that door. No one came. I left it and took the picture. My hand was shaking. The photo on the screen showed my knees in the bottom edge and the door. My shadow had a shape next to it. When I looked up at the actual porch, there was just my shadow. I took another one, and the second photo showed only me again. The first had a smear where a head would be if someone stood right beside me. I blamed the phone. I checked the dash and the reflection. The strap was locked. The dome light flicked and stayed on this time for 3 beats while the doors were shut. The radio went off. Black screen. No power. And then the scanner, which was in my hand on the way to the next door, chirped once from the back. I clenched it and it almost fell. I looked at the side mirror before I opened the driver's door again. There was a tall shadow in the glass, right where the passenger would be. straight edge where a shoulder would be. No face. I moved, and the shadow stayed half a second behind me. I cut the engine right there in the middle of a block and opened the bulkhead. I know. Stupid. The lights in the back came on bright. I stepped in. I ran a hand along the shelves to show myself they were empty. The straps were tight. The air was colder than the cab back there. The cheap carpet on the floor felt damp at the edge of the door. That's when I saw the handprint. Inside the rear door, above my head. Fingers splayed. Wet. When I looked at it, a drop ran down like it had just been put there. I wiped it with my sleeve. It smeared warm. My cuff got heavy and dark. I touched it to my tongue without thinking. It was water. I said, "You gotta be kidding me," because I didn't want to say anything else. I got in, slammed the bulkhead, and started the van. The radio woke to static and stayed there no matter what I did. The GPS map spun when I turned the wheel. It showed me turning circles on a street that only went straight. The next address in the list blinked. The number. The same number. Over and over. I turned left to break the pattern. The map turned me back to the same block. I lowered the window and stuck my head into the wind. It smelled like hot tar and water. I had that dumb envelope on my lap, the one that made me sign, and I didn't remember delivering it. The label still showed. ATTN. Night Manager. I held it up to the dome light, and the light flicked and went dim again like someone had hit a switch. I tried the radio and got dispatch again. "I need you to pull the dash cam," I said. "I think somebody's in the back." She said, "Do you need police?" I said, "No. I need you to tell me if you see anything." She said, "I can't see you live." "Bring it in." I told her I still had a third of the route. She said, "Softer. Then bring it in. Your times are weird. You're going in circles." That made it worse. I said, "Fine." The scanner beeped. The sound came from under the driver's seat, then from the back, then from the cradle like it jumped places. It's one stupid noise. I hear it in my sleep now. I put it in the glove box and slammed it. It beeped again, and I opened the glove box and it wasn't there. It was back in the cradle. I hadn't felt myself pick it up. I touched my hand to see if it was shaking. It was. I hauled ass to the yard. The belt stayed tight the whole way. Every stop sign the belt pulled like someone braced for a crash. When I hit the brake by the gate, the belt ratcheted in 2 more clicks and stayed. I sat there for a second because I didn't want to reach across and touch it. The guard waved me through. He didn't look at the passenger side. I parked crooked. I left the key in and jogged around to the passenger door like a rookie because it made me crazy to think of that belt sitting tight like a person. I opened the door and it unreeled fast like elastic, and the buckle swung and hit the plastic panel and made that hollow sound. I put my hand on the seat. It was warm. Warmer than the other seat. Don't say it was the coffee. The second cup was still sweating in the cup holder. The ring it left had dried and made another. 2 circles, crossed. Inside, the night manager was counting returns. I held up the envelope. "This was weird," I said. "It made me sign as driver to release it." He looked at it and scratched the corner. "This yours?" he said. "Looks like your handwriting." His fingers came back wet. He wiped them on his vest and made a face. "You spill something?" I told him it came that way. He said to put it with the odd bins. I set it on the table. The scanner beeped from my van outside and I flinched. He smirked. "Jumping at chirps? You okay?" I ran the footage. We've got old bricks with cards. I took the card and sat in the break room with the small screen. The timestamps matched the route. I scrolled to where the belt clicked. There's no audio, just video, but I could see the passenger belt jump in just a little and lock. The seat doesn't compress. Nothing presses the cushion. It just tightens and sits there. When I scrolled back to the gas station, I watched myself carry 2 coffees in, alone. When I hit the part where I had stepped into the back and touched the door, the cargo cam popped on when the door opened. The dome light went full, flickered, and came back half strength. In one frame, just one, there was a tall shape at the left edge by the straps. Shoulders. A straight coat, maybe. Head angled down. Next frame, nothing. This is where my stomach went cold. The timestamp on that one still was a minute before I opened the door. The cam had stamped frames before the door opened. I went to my delivery photos on the handheld. I scrolled through the ones with porches and doormats. On a couple, there's a shadow that doesn't match me. It's at the wrong angle. It's behind me when the only light was the porch lamp in front. On one, my hand is out with a box, and there's a second hand near the edge of the frame, pale with long fingers, not touching, just there, like it wanted to. I looked at the app logs and they were normal, except for that double chirp on the envelope. Driver sign to release. I tapped it, and it opened the signature. My name. Date. Time. Same minute the cargo cam stamped that frame before I opened the door. I felt sick. I put the scanner down like it was hot. I told the manager I was done for the night. I lied and said I felt sick. He kept talking about metrics. I nodded and left the dashcam card on his desk because I didn't want it. I locked the van and didn't look back at the belt. I walked across the lot to my car with my head down. The night air was still. My shirt was stuck under my arms. I got in my beat-up Honda and it felt good. Just the smell of old fabric and keys. I drove home with no radio. I didn't look at any mirrors. I didn't stop for food even though I hadn't eaten. In my apartment, it was quiet. The AC clicked. I took a shower. I watched the bathroom door. No reason. I left the water running longer than I meant to because it sounded like radio hiss, and that was better than quiet. I texted my sister something dumb about the cat she gave me when she moved. I don't have the cat. My brain wasn't making sense. I was pretty sure I was being stupid. I sat on the floor and ate crackers out of the pack, and the salt made my lips hurt. I was starting to tell myself I'd made it worse in my head. I used the word tired like a bandage. I said I was tired out loud so the room would hear. I turned on a dumb show and lay on the couch, and the sound of people faking laughs filled up the place. My eyes kept going to the front door, to the lock, to the little metal chain. I touched the chain. I don't know why. When I finally exhaled, like really exhaled and let my chest drop, the van alarm chirped outside. One bird chirp, the kind it does when you bump it by accident. I froze. It chirped again. I live on the second floor, and my window looks down to the lot. From the couch, I could see the top of the van by the light. It was just a white box and a slice of windshield. I stood and lifted the blind with 2 fingers. The lot was empty except my van and a couple sedans under the yellow light. I could see into the cab. The dome light came on for no reason and flicked. The passenger belt unrolled, slow, as if someone was taking it off. It slid all the way and the buckle laid flat and then jumped and turned like a hand had twisted it. I told myself, go get the dashcam card, go show someone, go do anything. And then the scanner beeped. From behind me. Not from my van. From inside my apartment. I turned so fast I stepped on the coffee table and knocked it into my shin. The beep came again, short and bright, from the hallway by the bathroom. I don't know how long I stood there. I know I did what I always do, en route when I hear a noise in the back. I said, "Yo?" Like that would help. Stupid. Nothing answered. Nothing ever did. The air was cooler in the hall, like the AC had kicked up. The bathroom door was open 2 inches. The bevel of the door caught the light and made a line like a seatbelt across the dark. My hand was sweating and it felt exactly like touching that wet envelope when I wiped my palm on my shorts. The scanner beeped again, from the closet by the door. That tiny chirp. I'd left my bag under the table when I came in, but the sound wasn't there. It was behind the coats. I stared at the closet knob. It wasn't moving. Then, very soft, from the window behind me, a click like a buckle. Not loud. Just the sound a seatbelt makes when it finds the latch. I looked back down into the lot. The van was dark again. No dome light. No movement. The alarm light on the dash blinked steady. But I heard the click again, closer, like it was at my ear. And I thought about that screen that asked me to sign, and I scribbled my name like an idiot. Driver signed to release. I signed. I let it out. I scanned it in and I signed to release it, and it came. It's in here. It won't go back. Every time I think about opening the door and letting the night in, the scanner chirps one time out of the dark closet like it's telling me it's still waiting. I can't see it until the light flicks, and then it's too late. Something pressed against my sleeve just now. Very light. Like a belt settling into the fabric. I'm going to stop. The buckle just clicked in the hall. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, feed the algorithm, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. It's the only way to keep the stories coming. And if you're brave enough, there's another one waiting right after this. See you on the next one.